Hey, Rich Mulholland, how you, dude?
Ahoy,
I'm
ahoy,
sorry.
ahoy, lads.
I'm
Good to
sorry you
see you,
can't see
man.
me. Yeah, my camera just went on the blink like 5 seconds ago, but we'll try and sort that out. In the meantime, it's good to see you, dude.
Thanks so much. Good to be here. It's great to be chatting to you guys again. It's been a while.
Yeah, way too long. And I know when you sent me a message a while ago and said, "Listen, you were talking on your show about how we can do video conferencing and meetings online better." And I know you're the expert in this, and it's taken us weeks to get it going, but here you are finally on the show. So, I mean, first of all, you probably are thriving in this environment because I know what you're like. You just when things change, you just find new ways of adapting. It's your kind of superpower. What about the fact that people are still struggling with getting into this new thing, and many of us are already bored and annoyed with meetings and apps like the one we're on at the moment where we get together every morning, but the technology allows you to do certain things that you couldn't have done before in a meeting, and in other ways it does inhibit people's creativity or their ability to communicate fluently. What are your feelings on all of this stuff?
Well, I feel like you've said a whole bunch of things that I don't know where you like. How does this inhibit our ability to do things fluidly and to be creative? Like I
Well,
don't I don't I don't buy that hypothesis.
like right now my camera's not working, which is very annoying, and the
Yes,
technical
but it also means that you're able to be having a shit right now, and we don't know. Like you could be sitting on the toilet and having a meeting with us. How incredible is
That
that?
is one of the most spectacular displays of bright side thinking I've ever seen, Rich. I'm gonna treasure this moment as a life lesson.
How did you know I was on the loo? That's why I switched off my camera. How did you know that?
Which is incredible though, because your sound doesn't have that echo. So like that is how high quality this show is.
In
That you
my
can be in the
imagination,
toilet.
Gareth's got a toilet in the garden. It's just lawn and pasture and some of the bunnies they have there, and then there's just this bog that sits.
Okay, go ahead. That's how my imagination as well, and I'll cherish it. I'll cherish that visual.
Glad we could share with each other today.
Okay, so let's go back to this a little bit, right?
Mhm.
I guess a lot of it is a decision you make about these. I'm able, first of all, let's talk about creativity. In the past, I was able to have a creative brainstorm with people that were in driving distance of my office. If we saw that as a bonus, that's great. And we work with some cool people. Now I'm able to have creative brainstorms. In fact, we've just hired a new consultant to do our marketing, and the person we found that we wanted to work with is based in Australia. And then we've hired a scaling up coach to help us with some of the business things we want to do. And the person we're working with is in Montreal. These people would simply not have been available to sit in the room before, and now they are. The
Right.
geographical handcuffs have been taken off, and it's the best thing that's happened once you realize it. Deciding to be upset that you're not sitting face to face with somebody. The fact is, we know it took a couple of weeks for us to get this together. You know how much longer it would have taken if we all had to be in the same place, and that is outside of any kind of COVID restriction as well. That's just practicality of things. It's the
Right.
reason I used to struggle to come into the show is because I'd be traveling, then I couldn't do it. Think about how many shows I missed of those Monday shows for years because I was traveling.
That's
Whereas
true.
now that wouldn't even been an issue. It would have just been, okay, cool. Where's Rich today? And I would have joined the show. It wouldn't even have come across as an excuse. So for me, it's a level up. And I understand that people are talking about Zoom fatigue and they're feeling tired of this thing. I'm calling bullshit because Netflix hours went up an hour per person, an hour per human last year. So everyone complains about staring at a screen. Oh, I'm staring at a screen all day. I'm so fatigued of it. Turn it off and go watch a dude pet a tiger.
Yeah, and people
Yeah.
are sitting glued to their phones all the time. Like I was saying, Rich, that for me, I'm not trying to be one of these. I was doing it before it was hip. It was more a case of like finding those clients and finding those people that were happy to deal with you and didn't act like, oh, I suppose it's fine. If Skype is all we can do, then cool. But I managed to forge a couple of good client relationships where it became pretty normal to operate on Skype. Also curious as to how Skype had this whole thing locked down for years, and then when it became the thing, just became last place. But that's a separate issue. So people are now just more accepting to the idea. It used to be like, hey, I'd like to throw out this bizarre, weird work parameter if it's okay with you guys, and hope that they're okay with it. And now it's just like we video call. I don't know what the big deal ever was, and I still don't know what it is.
For sure. And we've been through this kind of technological Luddites have been through these things like with the telephone and with every invention. Luckily, we know that this isn't new. We're not the first generation to push back on these things. I understand also that there is possibly a negativity to it. Like people can say to me, but it's a framing, right? So yes, but I'm finding it harder to switch off. So that's great. So I'm working more on weekends and nights where I wouldn't be working before. So I could think about that as a negative, or I could think about it that on Sunday, or in fact, the last 3 Sundays in a row, I did a coaching session with the CEO of one of the largest law firms on the planet who's sitting in Houston. Now, this wouldn't have been available. So I can see this as a negative thing, or I can see it as an opportunity to have access to humans. And to me, you've just got to decide on the frame you have. And I don't want to sound all motivation-y and rubbish, but you can see. So I think like the 18th of March last year, I wrote a blog post and said, what if this is the best thing that's ever happened to your business? I'm going to decide to act as if that's the case. And I haven't changed my stance on that one little bit. And every time I see people whining, sorry, Gareth.
Before you completely label me as a whiner, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I know that.
No, I know you are.
So, I mean, Rich, as far as I'm concerned, I never want to go back to the old ways. I think it would be horrible to have to find ourselves back in offices and doing officey things. And you know how that world just did not appeal to me at all. And I know that it didn't appeal to you either. And Gord loves this too. Sia and I had a meeting on Saturday to illustrate the point, which we would never have done before. If he'd said to me, come, we need to have a meeting on a Saturday, there's this idea I have, I would have said to him, go and screw yourself. There's no way.
Rich makes a really good point about how, you could have you could get the benefit of an in-person brainstorm with people who are in driving distance of your office, and in some cases who are not quite, but still have to mission there from far. Like there is, I was saying before, there is some benefit, I find, to that energy of a creative brainstorm, especially in a creative meeting. But laws and restrictions notwithstanding, assuming things go to a point where people can do what they want ever in the future, you can still do that. I mean, right now you can't. Right now we're doing this out of necessity, and thank goodness, or so many people wouldn't be able to do their jobs and would subsequently lose their jobs. But when it goes back to normal, you can have the best of both worlds. I just don't see any downside in this becoming, I hate the word, but normalized. Where's there a loss to anybody aside from like, I'm looking at the screen too much?
But I even just want to say that just to back and again, just to clarify, Gareth, like I never for a second thought that you were a voice of the opposition here, but I do understand the framing.
You did.
No. Like I'm very well aware that this is a level up in your mind. Like just the work that you've been doing is all stuff that wouldn't have been possible. The people you've had on your other show and things like this, just incredible. But my boy, or even on the brainstorm. So we did a brainstorm. I did a talk for Zoom actually last week. And all the brainstorms we did for that talk, which I believe was some of the best work I've ever done, was with people sitting remotely and sitting far away. And there's no creative limitation to coming up with cool ideas. In fact, all of us have front row seats to each other's faces. Yeah. Like we're all sitting close across the table. And I understand there's some studies that say that some human science says that when you're this close to a human being, you feel like, maybe there's a predatory, they're right up in your grill. But one of the easy fixes around this thing, I don't know what you guys are like, but I never have this full screen. Like you're a small little window in the top corner of my entire workspace. I'm not staring at this big ass screen things. I'm not feeling overwhelmed by all these faces.
I have to be honest. Maybe it's me being extremely vain, but I've always blown myself up. But because I also need to just...
Let's say that you being vain is already the answer, Sia. Sorry.
No.
I'm already shocked. I'm like, I don't know where this is going. He started with, I might be being vain.
I'm also Rich. I will speak to you now, not the other two. I'm hyper aware of how I am now perceived because I'm cognizant of being on a camera whenever we're in a meeting or the show. So now I need to look at myself like, am I sitting up straight, or is there a bit of a slouch, or what's that on the side of my mouth? And I think that has been a bit of a distraction for me.
Here's my Invisalign braces that I just took out because I realized staring at myself up close and personal, oh my goodness, you got shitty teeth, right? Like this is not okay. So, but I don't know if this is a bad thing. I think that there's a level up to this. I am building relationships with people that I wouldn't do before. And I think there's a frame, you just got to decide how you want to perceive this. For me, I'm just deciding to look at it as an upgrade, but I don't even think that's a difficult decision. I'm doing a talk for Zoom. They invited 1 million people to that talk. Yesterday, I went out on an emailing list for Prezi, who I also know who sent that mail to 1 million people, 1 million subscribers. Like, this is access that I literally never would have had before, and now I do because I decided to take it. And there's a whole bunch of human beings complaining. Oh, the other thing is, we're not getting paid in dollars because we are an international company that happens to be residing in South Africa. Everybody who's talking about leaving South Africa because their kids might not have a future here, that's all just changed. Your kids can live wherever they want in the world and work wherever they want in the world.
This is something that I completely agree with, and I wanted to squeeze in earlier, is this fact that, like, I've done a campaign for a really prominent agency based in Germany for a German car manufacturing brand last year. I'm working now with a consultant in Manchester, branding companies to do with renewable energy. And it's this guy who's based in Manchester, but he's Zimbabwean. And then he's brought on a South African designer and me, and we're working as an agency. But we found now that, like, because of budget restrictions and economic challenges, etc., in Europe, they've got lower budgets for their freelancers, and their standard rates are either not going up as they should with time or coming down. But those rates still equate to 1.5 to double what is my high rate in South Africa. So, and the time difference is only an hour or two to Europe. So we're finding that, like, South Africans are performing really well in English-speaking European markets as advertising and marketing creatives, because we work hard. We tend to be either fluent or first language English, and it's like they're not like insulting slave labor, but their low rates are higher than our high rates, and it seems to be a real opportunity there that wasn't in place a year ago.
A massive opportunity. In this case, everybody wins. The world perceives, it's one of the things we've discovered is as we've been working with more international companies, like, we know you South Africans are very creative. We're actually a bit worried that you might be. So the world sees us as this creative, highly functioning in many ways workforce. It is a huge opportunity. I can't understand, though. So many of the freelancers we work with are still working with only South African businesses and complaining about the rates. I don't understand that the tools and everything are available. I think the mindset is incorrect. And this is why, like, I would really want to go to war with this idea. Again, let's just talk about, if I can, like, meetings. Sure. In the past, my average length of a meeting was 1 hour. Gareth, if you and I were meeting, I know, let's say you said, okay, cool, can we meet at 10? I would arrive, in Rivonia at 10 o'clock. Took me, like, let's say it takes, not too far, but let's say the average meeting would be half an hour to get there, half an hour to get back. And I would have put in my diary 10 to 11. That's the default. Correct. Now, the default meeting in my diary for every client meeting, in fact, the only meeting link that I send anybody, and now all meetings are scheduled on a little calendar link, which takes about 5 minutes for somebody just to say yes and book an appointment. There's no back and forth. All these meetings, the location is always the same, so that's super easy. No one has to worry about transit, are 30 minutes. All client meetings for Missing Link are 30 minutes, and all client meetings, even if you sit across the road, must be via Zoom. And the reason is because then we can record it. I no longer have to give internal briefs. If I sat with you guys, and if I was taking a brief right now about a presentation you wanted to do, I would simply take the recording of this and send it on to my team and say, please prepare a quote. There's no he said, she said, there's no mistakes. There is no more internal briefing. We have the recording. And I don't know if you guys have used tools like Descript. Sorry, Gord, do you want to jump in there?
No. I was gonna comment, but please continue.
Well, Descript is incredible, right? So if you go to, I think it's descript.com, right? Yeah. You record the meeting, whatever, you upload it to Descript, and then it creates an instant transcript of it. You just look at the meeting and think all of the bit weren't relevant, so it's text. You edit the Word file, basically, and you instantly have the video, instantly. So you upload the video, say this video, you upload this exact thing to Descript. You just see all the bits at the beginning where we're talking about Gareth having a shit in his garden. You're like, I don't think that's appropriate, or that's the only stuff that matters. You delete everything else we said, and then you got
text,
a video about
you delete it as text, and it affects the edit in the video.
Yes,
that's genius.
Or you've got a tool
I wonder how it copes
Fireflies.
with South African accents, though. Like when you've got, South African accents, some mixed accents, and exotic accents like your own. It must be pretty interesting to see what Descript thinks you're saying. But obviously, you can get the gist of it, and that sounds like a pretty amazing technology.
Yes. What you can also do is you could, if you've got a pro account or whatever, you actually just train it to your voice. So you do the voice training, takes 20 minutes. But then let's say I said to you, there are 3 main things that we can do things. And then I realized, oh, wait, there's 4. Then I go back in, I retype the word FOUR, and it changes my voice to say 4. It's like deep fake stuff.
See, that starts to make me think that there's demons involved. That's where that, technology, if technology is smooth enough, it's indistinguishable from magic. I start going, no. Like, We need to exercise a demon.
And the only thing that happened is the world was forced to accelerate. If we do not look back at this period of time as the greatest acceleration of technological advancement and lifestyle upgrade in the future, like I think this is the only lens we'll have. Another great one for me for meetings is like Fireflies. I don't know if you guys use Fireflies. Mm-hmm. It's an AI empowered basically bot that sits in your meeting. It records the whole meeting and does sentiment analysis. So it will tell you points where tensions were raised. It will also tell you, it detects of an action. So if I said, Gord, please will you email me next week, Thursday, about that brainstorm we have with the German firm?
I sure will, Rich, no problem.
Thanks, bro. You see what I did there?
No, I'm answering positively so that the record knows that I said yes.
Let the record state. But then what it will do is at the end of the recording, it actually highlights the actions. So it says, oh, okay, these were 3 of the actions that were mentioned in the meeting. It's not an exact science, but it's a crap ton better than my human memory. And so this is what we're sitting with now. So why would I ever want to have a meeting in a room? And also, I don't know if you guys have found it, there's a whole lot less politeness required.
Yeah.
So
small talk.
We sit down and we get to it. Yeah, sure, totally. If I want to schedule time to catch up with one of you, I would schedule time to catch up with one of you. That's actually what my human interaction is now for. It's now for lunch, right? And in fact, the other thing is, yes, I don't spend as much time with my colleagues. So you could argue, yes, but there's less social time. But myself and my colleagues are spending more social time with other humans close to us. So there's a difference. We've moved back to almost that old British model that you leave work at 5 o'clock, you walk home, you have your tea, and then you go to the pub, right? So social is built around where you live, not around who you work with. And that's okay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exciting for people who want to be able to travel and work. I mean, the whole digital nomadic lifestyle has become something of a cliche, and you associate it with like privileged hipster kids off on a sponsored mission. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, my entire business, the one that I'm working on with the kids' books and the work that I traditionally do, all of it can be done remotely. There's no benefit. It's only when your main clients are nearby where you live and you have to constantly be in those big, horrific glass fish tank rooms. And another thing that I noticed as well with the whole remote working from South Africa to Europe is that everybody in the room, the virtual room, seems to have a purpose to be there. It's not like an obligatory meeting as often. You don't have 12 people in a boardroom and 8 of them are working on their computers or their phones.
Yeah, first of all, there's 3 things I want to unpack there. First of all, yes, I think you're absolutely spot on. And in fact, when you know that you don't need to be there, it's okay. You can now literally just check your email. The meeting's job to hold your interest. The second thing is just on the work anywhere. I don't know. Have you guys had Don Packett on the show, my old business partner? You guys know Don, right?
Yeah, I know him. I haven't spoken to him in a while, though. Lovely guy.
They were like working, and I mean, we've also not spoken in a while, but he realized he could work from anywhere. They've sold their house and they decided, well, if we're working, why are we sitting in our house in Four Ways Gardens when we could live around different places? And they're taking 2 years to live in different cities every month or 2. And they're just doing their normal jobs, traveling around, working, being nomadic. It's just,
I'm trying to build up the European client base to do that, and it's all kind of interlinked. We were talking earlier about the opportunities to work across countries and time zones, etc., and currencies especially. It's also a real opportunity. Obviously, if you've got kids and you've settled down, but then that's your personal life path. That's not necessarily a work plan. If you have the ability and you wish to do that, it's now so much so you don't have to be like a travel blogger. People with real jobs can be digital nomads, and it's exciting for a guy like me.
Absolutely. The last thing on this point for me was pet hate. I don't know if you guys have to deal with it much, but I can't understand still when you can use this technology, you're doing it, and I jump onto a meeting, like a Zoom meeting with a client, and they join from boardroom 1, and there's 8 people sitting around a table. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? This is the most ridiculously inefficient use of technology. Like, we could all be looking at each other in the face. Now you don't know when you're speaking. You guys all look like ants to me. It's sweating this old technology is ridiculous.
I totally agree.
Throw it away.
There are ways to do. So one of the biggest tips you've given me this morning is that you don't have to have this video on your main screen. You can have a little icon, and that's all you need, because the rest of the time you actually shouldn't be like looking at people's faces or their backgrounds or any of that stuff, even if you're vain like Sia. What about the fact that some people Is it polite or is it correct to switch off your video to keep it on? There are people who have these preferences. What have you found in the many interactions you've had over the last year?
First, well, so one weird thing for me is Teams users, and Teams, obviously Microsoft Teams. I love Microsoft products. I use PC in every single way, and Teams is where happiness goes to die. So Teams users turn off their screens by default. It seems to me they just don't like to do that. I don't want to have a meeting with somebody, generally speaking, technical issues aside, that isn't willing to turn on the camera. If we're sitting there, it's kind of like it's hard for me. There's two things actually. I don't have a meeting with somebody who's not got any earphones, because earphones is the boardroom door being closed. Earphones is an etiquette that I can now know that my voice isn't being broadcast to a whole bunch of people, and I know what's going on. So when I see 4 people sitting with their cameras on with, like, for example, earphones, I know that everything we're saying is essentially protected by some veil of the golden circle of the meeting, if that makes any kind of sense, right? We're in a zone. This is our space. When the camera's off, I don't know who's in the room. I don't know what's going on, and it's difficult for me to know how free I can be. So I see it as a limitation. Okay. I also do think, like people say, but I want to be able to look at people in the eyes. I can literally do that now. So I can always see the people I'm talking to. I just make them very small. And part of the reason for that, by the way, is if I make you guys big, my monitor's big. So if I want to now chat to Gord, I'm not looking directly at you there, but that's not looking at you because you don't exist there. You exist inside my camera. And it's why we need to push these little boxes small and close up to the screen. But yeah, so for me, I think it's personal preference and maybe business culture dependent. But I always want to see people. I want to do that. Otherwise, let's have a phone call.
I had to catch myself, being sensitive. Thankfully, it was not an issue. But I have a colleague who happens to be younger and female, and I brought her on to work on a project, and we're doing everything remotely. And I was having the conversation, and I'm trying to, I speak visually with my hands. Like, we need to put a thing here, and then there's lasers and a bear coming up, that kind of a thing. And I said to her, it's weird for me looking at this, just your initial on the screen. Can you put your video on? And she's like, okay, cool, let's put a video on. And at the end, afterwards, we carried on, and I didn't think about it again. And then I messaged her afterwards saying, listen, I hope I wasn't just like an old male guy talking work and saying, come on, sweetheart, put on your video. It's just, it feels like a phone call where only I can see myself otherwise. So I think you need to acknowledge that it's either going to be visual or not. Like, it's basically a hands-free phone call if everyone's video is off. So if it's going to be a video call, let it be a video call for everyone, unless they really don't need to or don't want to, or like Gareth, their shit's not working. And if it's going to be a phone call on the computer, then it needs to be that, because it's weird if one person, it's strange for me to talk, especially if I can see myself in that little window, see myself.
The irony we got into that.
Yeah. That
see yourself, hear yourself.
Now Gord is broke.
While Gord's reconnecting, I must say, personally, for me, I would never feel any qualms if I was an older 46-year-old gray-haired man sitting in a meeting and a woman joined the meeting and while I was speaking was facing the wall. I would have no qualms turning around and saying, excuse me, it would be much nicer for me if you would if I could see you when I was speaking to you. I don't think manners, this equation doesn't make sense to me. If I join another company's meeting, though, in fact, when I'm doing a speaking gig, the first thing I say to everyone, hey, everyone, thank you so much for having me, blah, 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 blah. It would be incredible. This is quite lonely, staring into the void. I know that a lot of you are busy, but if any of you are engaged and you wouldn't mind switching on your cameras, it would be lovely to see that there's other humans out there. And instantly, blah, 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 cameras appear.
No, people like
you can ask in a nice way. Yeah, totally.
Sure you can. Yeah. And I think we're all just figuring out a lot of these dance steps. So there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution to this. But I do like the fact that we are able to translate, and what you've done here, for example, with turning on the camera and asking people to show you their faces. I think that we've got to figure out these rules, and it's not an imposition. I mean, you still got to get dressed up. You've still got to try and brush your hair and look decent. And if you're not going to go to if you're not going to go to the trouble of that, you're going to sit in front of your computer and expect that your camera can be off all day and you got curlers in your hair and everything else. I just don't think you're taking yourself seriously, let alone the meeting.
Dude, couldn't agree more. One of my frustrations is, I'm so sorry, I'm working from home and it's not really set up for this. You've had a year. Okay? Exactly. You've had a year.
Yeah,
bullshit. I've gone through 3 iterations of cameras, 4 different lighting setups, probably 5 different microphones, just to get to the point. And I've not spent a fortune, but like you've had a year to figure out a somewhat acceptable way of that you could be comfortable turning on your camera. And I understand it's not always the case, and sometimes there's things. But the other thing is that everyone's forgiving. So the famous video of the British, interview with the kids running in the room, that's not even getting a mention now. Like what I mean, if that happened today and kids ran in the back of a government address, it would be like, whatever. That's how we live now. People are so accepting of everything. You just have to kind of show up somewhat professionally. If your kids run in the back, if a cat jumps on a screen, nobody cares.
Well, you see, this is, I mean, yesterday we recorded the TV show and Tony Leon was on and his dogs were barking in the background. And it became
shame.
It was something to talk about. He was embarrassed. He was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I was like, "This is hilarious. This is terrific," because we didn't know politicians and authors and people like that even were normal people before. Now we get to see them. These kinds of things almost humanize people a little bit more. And as long as you don't let it distract you to the point where you're not paying attention to the purpose of the meeting, I think it's all kind of cool.
For sure. But also, like, I don't know if you guys, can you hear that?
No.
Okay, so I'm banging 2 bits of plastic really loud together, really loud, because I've installed a tiny bit of free software called Crisp with a K, and you can't hear it. So we are now, again, we're now a year into this thing. With respect to Tony, he's a great guy. He should have figured out how to install basic level noise cancelling. In fact, even if it's a Zoom call now, Zoom, I don't know if you've seen now in Zoom's new settings, it actually has noise cancelling built in. I don't think it's as good as Crisp. And again, Crisp with a K, well worth checking out. I don't think it's as good as that. With Zoom, you can actually turn up the levels, and it actually has levels literally marked like dog barking is a setting. And then it will cut off dog barking and things like that. But like that, this is available now. And again, I don't want to take away from your point. It humanizes people, and I think that's amazing. The fact that people tease me, they say I've got bookshelves. The fact that I've got my board game shelves behind me is important because it's such an important part of who I am, and I love the ability to refer to it. It comes up in meetings. People say, "Is that books?" I say, "It's board games." It's a topic. It gets people to know me better. It humanizes me. I'm inviting people like you guys now into my home, and we're getting a sense of this. And I think it's just amazing. I think so many barriers have been dropped. I found relationships happen faster now because they have to.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, okay, I think we're all on the same side here. Are there any other basic things like the software you just mentioned now that's really handy? Any other basic things that you think people should do? I mean, how much money should you spend on setting up a home system if you're doing 5 meetings a day? It's almost worth spending whatever it takes.
Right, but if you're doing 5 meetings a day, if you get 2 of those little ring light things, halo lights or whatever from Take a Lot, they're 299 Rand, right? So that's not expensive. I would suggest that possibly your biggest expenditure, actually, if you wanted to throw out money on one thing, probably your microphone first. But even then, they've got those little Samson Goes or I can't remember, the Samson Meteor you can get on Take a Lot. It's a really nice little microphone. It's very packable. It's small, and it can also be attached to an arm if you want to keep it close. So you don't have to go with like a podcast quality mic. And then your camera. I do think that if you've got, I've got this computer that I bought last year. It's like a really top range computer. Its webcam looks like it was from 1980, Russia. Like it's horrific. So I would suggest that you maybe consider buying I have the Logitech Brio as my backup on my second angle. And then I have a Sony ZV-1, which is my main camera. It's nice because it's got like power, like things like really cool. Let's just see if I can make this work now. Autofocus and stuff. So if I want to bring things in there, but it wasn't shockingly expensive. So you've got to decide where you sit. I'm a public speaker, right? I charge people to show up and speak on camera. I don't have permission to not be on top of this, but most people should just be somewhat decent. And I don't think that the term we use for people is claps. Okay, you're the stage manager of your environment. You need to control the camera, the lighting, the audio, the presentation in our world, and the set. And this is your set. So you just got to give some thought to, it doesn't matter what it is. It just matters how you've placed it and how you framed it. And I just want people to be intentional about this thing. Just to say, all I want to do is to sit down in a meeting and think, somebody's put some consideration into how they've set this up. And I feel like as long as that is the case, it tells you something about them, and I'm okay. Having this up-nose camera shot with the window behind you, if you've got to this level of time now, a year in, and you've still not realized that a window behind you is a bad idea,
right?
And with respect, especially if you're a person of color, like, Sia, like, if you've got a big white glowing light, it's
get
harder.
it. I am sitting in front of my windows because I need all of this light.
Totally, we all do, but it's just a thing. If we've not figured this out by now, I'm not sure I want to have a meeting with you.
Right.
Like,
yeah. I don't disagree.
This is such a long overdue conversation, and mostly because, Rich, I think there are people who are still coasting and using excuses a year in, and it's just not on anymore. Plus, I mean, there's so many of us who want to do these things properly, and if I think about how many people we've had on the TV show, we've probably had over 150 guests in like 30 episodes, and you'd be surprised at how many really, really smart, really in touch, technologically adapted, the kind of people who are on the leading edge. How many of them don't have any of this stuff, don't have any idea of how to set themselves up? It takes Sia sometimes an hour to get them all organized, and it's extremely frustrating.
It's actually crazy, like, to the point though that it makes you think that, and I just think because of who you guys are, we launched a public speaking program last year because this is where we are. I actually think that like a broadcast training program or something like this, something where you guys actually, every single guest is essentially a potential client for jumping on there, learn how to broadcast. Everybody in the world is a broadcaster now. Learn how to do it from a pro by a pro. And I think that you guys should have a video series that if it's not set up, you say, guys, I think you should go onto this thing, jump onto these things. And you can also jump on a group call once a month where Gareth answers your questions. I think you should be teaching people this.
You're basically giving us the intro to a new business. I love it.
Yeah, but I think that there is some value there. People need to learn how to show up as if they were you guys.
Yeah,
because this is an opportunity. So the fact is that you gave me the last shot in my video show reel. If you go to getrich.af, the last shot in my video show reel is me being on your TV show, because you gave me such an amazing opportunity and a platform. Geez, that thing did so well for me, guys. Like, I got so much feedback and content and people reaching out that I haven't spoken in years. Your reach is incredible for me. Great. Thank goodness I made the effort to show up. And even then, it was like a different camera wasn't as good. People need to respect the attention that they are being given and show up accordingly.
We're out of time, but thank you so much, Rich, and thank you, Gord. I don't know where he went; he disappeared somewhere in the broadcast. But
his internet died.
And lots of love to everybody on your side, and we'll get together properly in person soon.
Awesome, looking forward to it. Thanks so much, fellas.
Be good.
Yeah.
Dude.
Cheers.
Bye.